How's it going, folks? This is Navarsai, and today I'm bringing you something a little bit different. You know, normally I just do Let's Plays or live streams, but today I kind of wanted to go over some of the things that are being discussed in the Overwatch community and give you my take on it. Now, this mainly came about because I just finished watching UnitLost's video about hero bans in Overwatch, and you'll find a link to their video below. But basically, they brought up a lot of good points against hero bans, but they didn't really go over what could be positive about hero bans, and that's what I kind of want to go over today, because while there are a lot of downsides to it, I feel like that it could bring something to the game. So I'm just going to go over kind of point by point what they went over as objections in their video and kind of give you my take on it. Now, I am not a Grandmaster player. I'm not even a Master player. I've barely gotten to the edge of Diamond, and I mean the Platinum edge of Diamond, so I'm very casual. If you've seen any of my gameplay, of any of my live streams of Overwatch, I make plenty of mistakes, so that's where this is coming from. This isn't coming from the pro level, this isn't coming from even, the master level, this is coming from the platinum level, so, take what I say with a grain of salt. Now, in UnitLost's video, one of the very first things they talk about is, if you had the ability to ban 2 heroes, who would you ban? And the immediate response, and it's kind of a cheeky response, is we would ban Winston and Reinhardt. And, that's kind of an impactful thing because, all of a sudden 2 of the most played tanks in the game are gone. And it's kind of like, well, what do you do then? But the thing that they didn't really cover in that little segment is, yes, you've banned Reinhardt and Winston, but you've banned it for both teams. And that's kind of one of the first points I want to bring up here, is that when you're banning a hero, it's not like I'm banning Widowmaker on the opposite team and they're banning Reinhardt on my team. When you ban a hero, it's banned for both sides. So if you ban Reinhardt and Winston, now both teams have to figure out how to play without those 2 characters. And we'll get into more on that in just a moment, but I just wanted to touch on that. The next thing that they talked about was, how does Overwatch play without main tanks? And, honestly, I think anyone who's been in quick play can tell you how Overwatch plays without main tanks. But in all seriousness, we've all been there. We've all had that game where everyone locks in DPS, or you might get DPS and heals, or you might even get, the nice players who will pick D.Va and Roadhog. And I mean, those are great. Every hero in this game is great. I like pretty much every character in here, but they're not main tanks. They can't really help you make those pushes. And so the game changes. But the problem with that is that the game doesn't change for the enemy team, who did come together and they did pick up 2 main tanks and a main healer and an off healer and 2 DPS that aren't just hit scan snipers that aren't going to make a shot. And I'm not salty, that's just my life. So, the thing there is that if you ban main tanks from play, you're gonna have to figure out how to play without main tanks. And I know that sounds, of course that's what you have to do, but when you think about it, especially like if you got to the pro level, that could really initiate some strange plays. It's, we rely on that Reinhardt shield or that Winston dive or, D.Va eating ults. So having those not there, I mean, it could really change up the dynamics of the game. Now, the next point that they brought up was, what happens if a character gets banned and that's the only character you play? Now, I relate to that a lot. I mainly play D.Va. I am a D.Va main, and I only can play a few other characters, competently. I'm not even that good at them, like, I'm an okay Mercy, I do a little bit better as Moira, but D.Va is the character I get the most value out of. So if D.Va got banned, I would have to reevaluate how I was going to play the game. But I don't think that's a bad thing, and here's why. First of all, we've all been on teams with one tricks. Especially one tricks that get countered. Now, there are a lot of fantastic one-tricks out there. There are people who have taken their mastery of characters to heights that I will never even see. But for the majority of us, we're not at that level. And so when we get a one-trick and they're constantly getting countered and they're not switching off, that's just as frustrating. So, being in a world where you might not be able to pick your favorite character all the time, and so you have to have a fallback, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think being more well-rounded, having at least 2 or 3 characters that you can play well, I think that's good not only for the game, but for you, because you're getting different experiences. You're not just seeing the world from the eyes of a tracer. Now you're like, oh, okay, well now I understand why I keep dying as a tracer, because I keep overextending, and yeah, my Zenyatta's orb falls off because he lost line of sight on me 2 minutes ago. So that's kind of my take on that. They talked about how the whole hero ban was brought up as a need to counter Brig. We'll cover that a little bit later on in the video. The other thing that they brought up was how this would work in the Overwatch League, especially when you have a player that has reached that pinnacle of skill and you want to see them play on that character. They specifically brought up Carpe as Widow, and yeah, I could definitely see that. It's not that it makes for amazing play, it's that it would kind of bring you down a little if you wanted to see Carpe play Widow in a match and he wasn't able to. I personally think there's a way around that, and I'll go over that near the end of the video when I talk about how I might implement a ban system. But when it comes down to it, I don't necessarily think that that's going to be that big of a problem, because if you're banning Widow on one team, it's happening on the other team as well. So if Carpe can't play Widow, no one else can play Widow. And then you have to reevaluate once again how your comp is going to work, what you're going to do to make up for that. And this is what it really comes down to for me, especially in the Overwatch League, because I remember watching the first Overwatch World Cup and the Overwatch League, and I was really excited in the beginning, but as the season wore on, I got a little bored because we were seeing the same comps and the same characters over and over again. And I really wanted to see, it's like, okay, yes, I know that this team can play a great D.Va, Winston, Mercy, Pharah, whatever, but what if we had Soldier in the mix? Or what if, instead someone was playing Doomfist or Sombra? That's more of what I personally would like to see. And I feel like if we could get the heroes circulating a little bit more, we would get more of that, and it would actually make the games more exciting. I mean, yes, we know that Carpe's a phenomenal Widow, but maybe he's also a really good Sombra. I mean, and I don't subscribe to pretty much any of the pro players, so, maybe you guys all know that Carpe is already a fantastic Sombra and the world's best or second best tracer, I don't know. But I would like to see that in the Overwatch League. Now, another thing that people talked about was bans happening based on what's in the meta. I don't see how that's a bad thing at all. Everyone has complained about goats. It's, the no skill comp, the easy mode comp. So if we ban Brigitte and Reinhardt or, whatever, in order to move that comp out, is that really a bad thing? Now, I know that this could possibly go too far, but I think that this would actually give us a little bit more control over what we're seeing in competitive, and what kind of meta we have as a community, not just based off of the latest hero balance changes. Now, the next topic that they bring up is kind of a hard one to deal with, and that is, if you don't ban a certain character, someone on your team might get upset and throw the game or quit or whatever. My thing with that is, that's gonna happen anyways. It already happens. I mean, how many times have you been in a match where someone says, I want to play X, if you don't give me X, I'm going to throw. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're playing Tracer, she's countered so hard by Brigitte right now, I'm gonna throw because you're throwing. It happens. The thing is, people are like that. People are, when they're toxic like that, they're going to be toxic. They are going to throw, and they're just going to look for any reason. So yes, it might be that your team decides to ban Winston on this map, and this guy just spent the last hour and a half dying to Maze, and so he really wants Mei to be banned, and he turns around and says, well, since you didn't pick Mei to be banned, I'm gonna play Torbjorn. Which, by the way, I think is a bunch of bullcrap, okay? Torbjorn should never have been the poster child for throwing a game. Lots of people got, well, I shouldn't say lots, but, people got value out of Torb, so, and he's good now. I like Torb. He might not be perfect, but he good. So, anyways, long story short there is that people are going to throw if they're going to throw. They're either going to join your team or they're going to be jerks. That's really all it comes down to. The hero ban system wouldn't change that one way or another. Now, the next point that they brought up is a little difficult to deal with, and that's just that there aren't enough tanks or supports in the game. And that's true. There really isn't enough tanks or supports in the game. But I view that as a problem overall. I don't view that as a problem specific to the hero ban system. But here's where I think the hero ban system would actually help in this. And I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but with the hero ban system, if we start banning certain characters, we have to reevaluate the way we play. I've talked about that. So if we ban Ana and Reinhardt from a match, suddenly we have to figure out, okay, well, we need a different main healer. Are we going to have Mercy? Are we going to have Brigitte? Are we going to have Moira? What do we do here? And I think that could really make some interesting play, and especially some interesting interplay at the pro levels where they're trying to figure out, okay, well, we know they've got a really good Reinhardt, but we also have a really good Reinhardt. How are we going to play without a Reinhardt if we ban Reinhardt? So while we don't really have a great pool of tanks and supports, I don't think that's going to be a major issue. I think what you're going to see more of, at least at the pro level, is people picking things like Widowmaker or a Genji, if they know that the opposing team is really good at pulling off the Nano Blade. Now, on the ladder, like where I'm at, people are going to make troll bans. People will say, haha, we're gonna ban Reinhardt. Once again, it's gonna happen. But it's kind of like, you gotta balance the good with the bad on this. So if you take the positives that you get out of this and balance it against the fact that, yes, you're occasionally going to get troll picks, that's really just how the game is. Any online game, you're gonna have trolls. Now, another thing I thought that they were talking about that was really interesting was how banning Lucio would have massive implications because so many comps would fall apart without his speed boost. And to that I was kind of like, well, is that really such a bad thing? Now, before you all start coming at me with torches and pitchforks, this is my thought process on this. Lucio is a fantastic character. I love the way he plays. I have a ton of fun just wall riding around on him, even though I am not a great Lucio. But I don't feel like any character should be so integral to the game that if they're not in a match, the game falls apart or just ceases to be fun. If that's the case, then we might need to kind of go back to the drawing board on the game itself. Now, if Lucio's banned, well, that kind of hurts goats right now. So they, people might have to look at a different build at that point. Now, another thing that they brought up with this is if we started banning certain heroes like Lucio or Reinhardt, would we have to come up with similar heroes? That way we could still have the niche they fill available when they're banned. So, another character that provides a speed boost. I don't necessarily think that's the case. That's kind of similar to saying that, Widowmaker is the first Ashe and Ana is, the second Ashe. And I know that that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's kind of what it is. We have characters with similarities. Ashe, Widowmaker, and Ana are all kind of sniper characters, but they fill very different roles. So I don't feel like we would necessarily need another support or speed boosting character. Now, it might be nice to have another character that does provide something, but maybe not a permanent speed boost like Lucio does, but maybe something like in WoW, druids have an ability called Stampeding Roar that they activate and their entire party gets a movement speed increase for so many seconds. So, you know, maybe something like that, or maybe tie it to an ultimate. I mean, I wouldn't actually do that. I don't think that would be a very interesting ultimate, but still, you know, there are options there. But I don't think, not only do I think we wouldn't need to have kind of like Echo Fighter heroes, but I don't think we should have them. I think that Blizzard has a lot of ideas for great heroes that we can have a lot of fun with if we give them a chance, if we move away from, you know, okay, yeah, we have to have a Lucio, Reinhardt, Brigetti, Moira, Zenyatta, Diva, you know. I mean, look at Ashe. Ashe is a fun character. You can get a lot of value out of her, but if people were just like, well, no, I'm going to stick with Widowmaker, then what would be the point? Now, the next point that they brought up was that in League of Legends and Dota and other MOBA type games, you can't switch your hero after the match begins, whereas in Overwatch, not only can you, but it's almost required that you change your hero. Because you have that initial fight where you don't know what the enemy team is made up of, and you either win or lose. If you win, you go on, the enemy team is going to change. If you lose, then you kind of have to figure out, okay, well, what can we change up here in order to win the next team fight? Because if you don't, you're more than likely just going to keep throwing yourself against that grinder as they're getting more and more ult charge, and you're not going to make it anywhere. Now, they brought this up because, you know, I guess it was supposed to be detrimental to the ban system, but I don't really see how. Because you're still going to be changing your characters in Overwatch. The hero ban system isn't going to stop you from changing characters, it's just going to keep you from being able to select that certain character. So yes, maybe you'll go up against a team fight, you're Tracer, and you realize they have a Brigetti, and you're like, okay, well, now I need to, you know, choose something that counters Brigetti, but, and I don't know, maybe Pharah or Junkrat or something, and you're like, well, crap, Junkrat's been banned. Well, then you look at a different character. And that's, once again, it comes back to that whole dynamic play style I was talking about. Having to think on the fly as you're playing the game, I mean, that's a skill all of its own. And if you can turn around and say, okay, well, this character's banned, but I can play this character and help win the next team fight. I mean, I honestly, I want to see that. I would love to see players having to work around that, you know, having a limited toolbox in order to overcome these challenges. Now, one thing that they said was that this kind of came up due to a want to get rid of Brigetti and Goat's comp as a whole, which, yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of this came from. Now, if you look back, you'll see lots of forum posts for people asking for hero bans long before Goat's comp was a thing. So it's not just that, it's not just Brigetti, but that is where a lot of the push is coming for it now. And once again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that being able to kind of force changes in the meta would actually be really neat for us as a community, and I think it would get us more mileage out of Overwatch as a game. Because, let's be honest, you know, dive meta got stale after a while. The Beyblade meta, you know, once these things become meta for so long, we want to change, and that can only happen if Blizzard does some all-encompassing balance patch, or if they release a new hero that specifically messes with that meta. Neither one of those are necessarily great options because it just kind of relies on us waiting for Blizzard, whereas if we had hero bans, we could be more in control of that. And that brings me up to my next point. UnitLost spoke about this kind of being used in lieu of a balance patch because Blizzard doesn't react fast enough to community, not criticisms, but, you know, community feedback. And to a point that's true, but we really need to stop and think about it here, because Blizzard could turn around and say, oh man, Brigetti is just being too hard of a counter. She's enabling all these different types of play. We need to rein her in. But if they just swing the pendulum one way or the other, then we're just going to be constantly having this back and forth. Trying to find balance for each hero takes time, and I think that's more important. This really kind of speaks true to me, especially with like the recent Doomfist nerfs, because once you get used to playing a character in a certain style, when that changes, I mean, that can be rough. You know, I got really used to playing Doomfist where I would seismic slam down, uppercut, shoot, and then punch away, which I know people hated. And don't get me wrong, I'm not mad that Doom was nerfed, but I'm just saying I got really used to that, and now I kind of have to play in the opposite way, where I have to rely more on my charge up punch and then uppercutting and seismic slamming away to disengage. Is either one of those playstyles worse than the other? It's kind of up to opinion, but I got used to playing it one way, and now I have to kind of relearn how to play this character. So I personally don't think Blizzard taking their time on patch changes and hero balancing is a bad thing. And if you think about it, with with how many heroes and maps we're getting each year, coupled with the balance changes and the bug fixes, I mean, I feel like we're getting stuff at a reasonable pace. Maybe not as much as I would like, but I don't think that Blizzard's dragging their feet. So I would say, yes, hero bans give us the ability to kind of fill a stopgap measure there, but I don't think that's bad. Once again, I feel like this really gives us the opportunity to get more out of Overwatch than we currently have. And I do believe this at the, from every level, pro, contenders, grandmaster, top 500, grandmaster, master, everything. I feel like we can get more from this. I would much more enjoy watching a stream if, I knew that they weren't just going to be playing the same meta or, similar metas over and over again. As an example, I was watching Seagull stream the other day, and he actually partnered up with Defron and, no, it wasn't Evil Toaster. I think Evil Toaster was on the opposite team. But there was 3 of them, and they were going up against Evil Toaster and Colorblind, and oh my god, I can't remember names. Anyways, they kept going up against them, but it was pretty much the same setup. It was Orisa, Symmetra, and Bastion, going against them. And I mean, just imagine if in the next match they could have turned around and been like, okay, well, no more Orisa or no more Bastion. And then, the team would have to go, oh, okay, well, now we have to figure out a new playstyle. That would have been much more interesting than, watching the same play over and over again. Now, don't get me wrong, it was amazing play. I was in awe watching that. Just kind of like, I was watching Seagull play Symmetra, and that's going to give me nightmares probably for the next month and a half. But in any case, I feel like this would help. Now, the next question here would be, how do you implement a hero ban? Now, I feel like the best way to do this would be to have the ban happen before you ever get to the hero select screen. So basically, the loading screen now would be, now entering Rialto, and then you would have maybe a 20-25 second period where your team votes on a hero to ban. Now, it would have to be kind of done in turn. So maybe, blue team gets to pick a ban first on the first round, and then red team, and then next round, red team goes first, then blue team, however you want. But so blue team picks, they ban Widowmaker, red team picks, they ban Mercy. Okay, so now we go in, we pick our characters, we go into the battle, and then, like I said, next round, red team picks, and they pick Reinhardt, and blue team picks, and they pick Orisa. Now, one thing that I think could make this even more interesting is if hero bans were kind of locked to that round. As an example, let's say we're on attack on Numbani. My team decides to ban Widowmaker, and the enemy team decides to ban Tracer. So we go through, we push the payload however far, the round ends, and now the next round begins, and we're going to ban our heroes. Tracer and Widowmaker were already banned in the last round. So now this round, they can't be chosen as the ban targets. So Widowmaker and Tracer are now safe, and we pick 2 other targets, anyone other than Widowmaker or Tracer. So we're still going to ban 2 targets, but now Widowmaker and Tracer will be available for this next match. So that's really going to kind of make you think and plan ahead. Like, if you know, okay, well, we're on attack, Widowmaker's going to tear us apart, so we're going to ban her now and have her available for the next one. Or if the enemy team's like, well, no, we would rather ban Widowmaker now and have her available for the next one. That really, once again, gives you more dynamic. It makes you have to come together and figure out what you're going to do to make up for that. But then it also fixes one of the issues we talked about with the pro play, where if we ban Widowmaker and Carpe doesn't get to play Widowmaker and you wanted to see that, well, now, yeah, he can't play Widowmaker for the first round, but Widowmaker is going to be available for the second round. So now you get a chance to see that character in action. It's not a perfect solution, but I think it's one that could, at least kind of meet in the middle ground there, where you're still able to ban certain heroes, but you're doing this with the knowledge that the next round, those heroes are going to be available again. So that's everything I had in regards to the hero ban system. Like I said, UnitLost had a lot of good input on why we shouldn't have a hero ban system. I just kind of wanted to look at it as to why a hero ban system might work well for Overwatch. In the end, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, I enjoy Overwatch. If there's a hero ban system, great. If there's not, well, that's fine too. I'm going to enjoy playing the game irregardless, except for when I'm in comp and I want to pull my hair out. But that's an entirely different story for an entirely different video. So anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this. If you did, please remember to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and leave me a comment. Let me know if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more Overwatch content like Overwatch analysis or news discussions in the future, or just let me know what you think of the hero ban system. Am I totally off my rocker? Do I have some things right, but I just don't understand how things work at the pro level? That's absolutely true, by the way, but still. And yeah, and as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.